All right. So thank you everyone for coming. There are a few people here that might not know me. If you're just joining us, can you just use the chat to share with us one thing you're grateful for and one thing that that you found challenging throughout the year? For the benefit of people, I mean, some of you here are the OGs that started with us from as far back as 2017. Yeah, that was when I started parenting education. So some of you are the OGs and some of you are just meeting me for the first time. At least I know that I haven't met Chinyere before. So Chinyere, welcome. My name is Dr. Vivian Okoye. So I'll introduce myself. Let me say how this will flow. I'll introduce myself, share a little bit about myself, a little bit about the work that we do, a little bit about what underpins every single training and every single principle that we share. Then I will answer all your questions and then I will share a bit of our focus for the coming year. So my name is Dr. Vivian Okoye. I'm a clinical psychologist. So my background, my background was in optometry. So first I have a degree in optometry. So I'm a doctor of optometry. Then I transitioned to psychology and trained as a clinical psychologist here in the UK. And we started this movement in 2017, um, where we have now built this community, this amazing community that we have, where we're supporting, parents to navigate the challenges, the everyday challenges of, raising children and not losing ourselves as it were. Um, but like I mentioned, for those who joined earlier, over the years, the work that we do has expanded. We started in 2017 with parents and supporting parents. In 2021, in 2018, we started to work with children, and in 2021 our work kind of like then expanded to actually working with children one-to-one, so providing direct support with children, confidence issues, self-esteem, and mental health struggles, depression, anxiety in children. And this year, the work that we do kind of like expanded more, because with more knowledge, the more you know, the more you want to share. So I've done a lot of work this year on ground in communities in the UK around neurodiversity. So it's quite interesting that we have a few people here who are struggling with their children being neurodivergent. So I've done a lot of community work this year supporting families and neurodivergent children here in the UK. I've also done a lot of work this year. When I shared that I was doing a lot of therapy, I've done a lot of work this year around trauma therapy, and a lot of works with a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse and different forms of abuse. So that's why I say in the coming year, the work that we're doing is expanding, and we would be able to communicate that and integrate everything under one network: what we do with parents, what we do with individuals, and what we do with children. And because somehow it's all interconnected. I mean, most of the struggles that we see with parents showing up for their children stem from their own personal struggles and from their own traumas and from the things that have been passed down to them, and from the struggles they're having in their marriage, with their spouses, with their partners. And then that kind of like flows down to the children and how we show up for them. And then when it comes to having a child who has extra needs, affects the challenges of parenting. Raising a child who needs extra support is a different ball game on its own. So we're trying to provide that holistic network where everybody can get the specific support that they need. So this is me. I'm a mother of two, currently living in the UK, with two children. And yeah, I mean, I work, my corporate job is also in children well-being. I work as an assistant regional lead for a service that supports families and children who are struggling with their mental health, and it's impacting their education in some form. So we try to work with them, create interventions, and try to reintegrate them back into the education system. So in a nutshell, that is who I am. So I'll try to answer all of our questions. When we look at the questions, there are reoccurring themes. So I'll try to answer all of them as much as I can this evening. But I would also say this would then form the focus for the initial work that we're going to do in the early months of next year's, because I'm trying to, for us to have this kind of space where we really come in and chat and address issues as often as we can. God helping me to create it and to do it more consistently like we did in 2024. I know we did a lot of days in 2024 on Telegram, but I'm hoping that in 2026 we'll be able to do it as well without any interruption. So I'll start with I'm gonna I'm not going to answer this in sequence. I'm gonna start with a few so we knock out the ones that are just really pretty straightforward. So Tochuku, you shared something about about your children being picky eaters, right? I'm gonna give you a simple answer when it comes to a picky eater. I learned something about when you want to introduce, and this is like a principle for neurodivergent children because many neurodivergent children have restrictive eating, right? When you want to introduce food to someone who is struggling to eat, the idea or the principle is not to remove what is familiar, because most times the way we think about it is, oh, you're always eating XY and I want to add AB. I want to remove XY and give you AB as a variety. That will not help. If you want to help a picky eater, you add on top of the familiar. So if the child already loves A, keep A on the plate and add what you want to introduce. So always keep what they're familiar with and then add what you want to add. Even if it's one piece that they take, consistently add it over time. They'll start to take 2 pieces, they'll start to take 3 pieces. But as it were, I'm not a nutrition specialist, but I will share with you someone who can answer your question and who would provide every single support that you need on that journey. If you go to Instagram and look for the kids nutritionist, I don't know if you've heard of her, the kids nutritionist, and anyone here who is struggling with their children having being picky eaters or not eating some certain type of meat. And even any regular parent, even if your children are not picky eaters, this is not an advert. She's just really amazing at what she does. If you want to improve your children's diet, please look for her and join one of her trainings. They're really, really affordable. Even follow her on Instagram and listen to her. You will get a lot out of that. So that's that, not doubt. And I said I was going to share my opinion about, or my thoughts about your child saying he wants to die. As much as he doesn't understand the concept of what he is saying, I feel like that was also that didn't just come from nowhere. That must have come from somewhere. So I would want you to pay attention to what he is watching, because there are a lot of trends online where kids, and I'm hoping that's not what it is, there are a lot of trends online, content online where kids are being exposed to, game like kind of things, and telling them to kill themselves and stuff like that. So just be very, very vigilant to make sure that that's not what is happening. So it's better to be more careful and find out that that's not what's going on, than to be ignorant and find out that you didn't do due diligence. Yes, so that's that. um Then we have this question around routine. So the framework under which or what the principle that underpins everything that we teach is we teach the framework called calm, right? Calm, as it were, the way it is spelled, CALM. And when we talk about calm, we say for you to actually show up. If you have a pen and paper, this might be a good time to write because it can form the basis for what you want to work towards in the coming year. For you to show up for your children wholesomely as a parent, you have to be first conscious, right? And what does consciousness mean? That you want to come, and I believe that everybody who is in this room this evening is a conscious parent. Like, if you're not conscious, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't even be bothered. You have to be conscious, you have to be aware, you have to understand what your struggles are, have to understand what your what the shortcomings are, and kind of like really be aware of those challenges and looking for ways to change them, to improve them, and to make things better. And then the second is that you have to be authentic. And this is where a lot of us are struggling, not because we don't want to, not because we don't know that we should, but because of what has been passed down to us as well. So a lot has been put in us, the need for perfection, the need to be in control, the traumas that we have picked on, the judgments that we're afraid of, the fear that we have based on our own experiences and based on our fear that we will miss it with our children. Those things, make us show up to the world, to our children, to interaction as not our real authentic self, right? So authenticity simply means showing up as who you are. But many of us, because of conditioning, because of trauma, because of people's opinion, we really don't show up as who we are. So for you to actually be a wholesome parent, you need to learn, first of all, it has to do with a lot of healing, coming to a place where you relinquish the need to be perfect, the need to always be in control, the need to please, and your idea of what perfect looks like in terms of behavior, in terms of children. So authenticity is the second arm of that framework. And the third one is loving unconditionally. The concept of loving your children, loving both the good, the bad, loving them for who they are and not for what they do, right? And the fourth one is mastering yourself, mastering your emotions, mastering communication, and all of that bit. So this is the four pillars that form, what we teach and how we teach it. And I'm gonna be referring to them as I answer each and everyone's question. So, being able to find balance between disciplining and still being a friend. That was one of the challenges that Chinyere had, with the child. So when it comes to showing up for your adolescent, and I think this was a theme across for a lot of people. So if this applies to you, just listen. So this to respond for an adolescent child who is now being very argumentative, who is trying to find their independence. How do I show up and be firm as a parent, and also ensure that I am not being overly strict in a way that they don't find me as a friend? It's a tricky one because when it comes to discipline, it's an ongoing job. But if you haven't had that structure over time, then you want to sit down and have a conversation. And this is a good time to have a conversation towards the end of the year. This is actually a good time to sit with everyone in your family and take feedback and share expectations and share these challenges. So just the way that we have done it in this meeting, you can actually take this and go back to your family and to your children and actually sit with them and say, this year, what have you been grateful for, and what are the things you struggle with? How have I showed up with you that you don't like, and how would you want me to show up with you? So what that does for you is that it helps you get in their head, so they tell you, and then you also get the opportunity to also tell them and share your own perspective. Because most times when we find ourselves at loggerheads with our adolescents, the problem is that they're not understanding where we're coming from. So they see all these things on, if they're exposed to social media, they see all these memes and all these things around African parents. And while those might look like a joke, it kind of like skews their mind, that when you then say maybe no, don't do this or we don't do that, they just put you in that box of African parents, and then they become a bit resistant, right? So creating that space where you're able to share your perspective with them, to help them say, when I do this or when I say this, this is actually what I mean. When I say organize your room, this is why I'm saying that, and this is what I mean. So it's offering you a place, a space that is not tensed, because the problem we are having for most of this conversation that we shared is that we are addressing them in a moment where everybody's emotion is heightened. So you will not be able to communicate because your emotions are heightened, and your child, whatever you're communicating in a moment where their emotions are heightened, will not stick because their emotions are heightened. So creating a flow or a sequence where you have those moments where there is no fracas, there is no heightened emotion, and we're just talking through these challenges that we have and trying to actually hear each other and be curious as the parents, to listen not to judge, listen not to prove that you're right, but listen to see the perspective that your child is bringing to the table, right? And what you do with that perspective, what you do with your understanding of that perspective, is that you can do it then, or you can take it back and then come back at a later time to use that perspective to shape the rules and the regulation that you want to bring into your home, in a way that your children also contributes to that, and in a way that everybody agrees to that. And what this will do for you is that when behavior, because it doesn't mean that if you have rules and regulation, behaviors will not happen. Like challenging behaviors will not show up. They will show up. But what this will do for you is that when challenging behaviors show up, you're not just going to start having the conversation and heated arguments over again. You're just going to direct everyone to what the rule says and how everyone agrees to that, if that makes sense, right? So Chinyere, I don't know if you're following, and any other person that this was also their question, right? So if you have an adolescent who is becoming, I know some other person had a 16-year-old daughter who is also, I can't remember who that is now, who is also like in that space where they're trying to argue with them, right? And this even applies to anybody who has a child who is well aware to communicate and understand. If you don't take anything out from this conversation, take that you should have a rhythm in your home where you take feedback and give perspective as well. So it can be every week, it can be every other week, it can be every month, right? Where you actually just sit down informal and just chat with your kids to say, all right, this is what we have struggled with. In my own opinion, this is what we have struggled with this month. I don't know if you agree with that. What have you struggled with? And, what do you think we can do about it? How have I showed up? What is it that you don't like? How can we change that? And if you are a traditional person, you might be thinking, is it not giving children too much power? Again, that brings us back to that framework I shared, authenticity. You don't have to always be in control 100% of the time. In fact, when you give them the power, you're controlling it because you're making them feel like they're making the decision, but you're guiding the decision, as opposed to not even knowing what is going on in their head, and then being at loggerheads, with them at every point in time, right? So have that, create that space, and think about not just what the rules will look like, not just let your rules be guided by the constant struggles that you're having, and then think about how do we solve this problem, right? And put a rule to it, and also think about what the consequences will look like. I think this will also help the person who has talked about routine, in the sense that if you're trying to create a routine, you have to talk about it with your children and say, this is what we want to achieve. When we don't have a routine, this is what happens. We either wake up late, we're cranky in the morning, we go to school late, right? So we're trying to create a routine because we don't want to be cranky in the morning, we don't want to be rushing, we want to be able to get to school so nobody is shouting in the morning. So to be able to do that, we're going to wake up by um you know um whatever that is. And if you have to go and buy a very loud timer that wakes yourself up, wakes everybody up, you have to lead that, because you are the leader in the home, so you won't delegate it to them, right? So have that, and say, this is when we wake up. It's okay not to be a morning person, but when children have to go to school, I don't know how you would do it. Are you not gonna wake up, and you have to wake up because you have to wake up? I'm not a morning person, but I have to wake up because I have to wake up, right? So using timer to wake them up, using visual timetables depending on their age to show what needs to be done when they wake up, and making sure that they go to bed on time. So one of the things that would help you as a parent, no matter your age, no matter the age of your children, is ensuring that your children go to bed on time, right? I can't overemphasize that your children should not be out of bed by 8. If you haven't started it, please start it. It's going to help you. It's going to help your own mental well-being, because from that 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., that 2 hours that you have to yourself is enough to help you regulate yourself emotionally. That 2 hours that you have to do something you love, to decompress before you go to bed, not answering to everybody, before you retire, is very good for your well-being. So to create that routine, think about how can I make it possible for my children to be in bed by 8 or 8:30. Even if they're not sleeping, that's for the older kids. If they're not sleeping, it's okay, but let them be in bed, let them be on their bed, and let them know that by 8:30 we have closed everywhere and you need to start preparing to be sleeping. For the younger kids, you need to put them to bed. So how can I ensure that by 8 or 8:30 we are on bed and my children are about to sleep? So think about, what, because I say think about it because we have different realities and I'm not expecting anybody to be perfect, but think about it. How can it work based on the realities that you have? Then another thing I want to draw out from Chinya's question is the issue around lying, right? When a young person is lying, again, and please don't get me wrong, this is not like blame or trying to point fingers, but like you just want to look at it curiously, in the sense that what happened, like how did that start, right? Because I feel like it has to start from my experience, it has to start from our reception, our reaction when they have shared the truth, consciously or unconsciously, right? So you know how your child does something bad, and you find out, or they tell you that they did it, and then you react, you blow up, you shout, and all of that. That might then start to make a child, start to hide the truth, because the nervous system will tell them that it's safer not to share the truth, because when I share the truth, this is the response that I get, right? Again, you use the word obsessive, which makes me a bit like, when you say obsessive, because when you say obsessive, what we're insinuating is that this person cannot control it, right? So it might be something to explore a bit, but if it is that this person is lying, then You need to retrain their nervous system and their brain to trust you, to feel safe enough to share the truth. And how do you do that? You do that through constant reassurance, not by shouting that they're lying, right? So, through constant reassurance, that is one aspect of it, because you're trying to help them understand that they can be safe with you with their truth, right? And then when they share the truth and it is unpleasant, it has happened, it has happened. Be curious and problem solve instead of shouting, because what we do most of the time is we scream, we yell, why did you do this, why are you lying, blah 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 blah, but we don't sit down to say, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Why did you do it? What led up to this point? What were you thinking? How are you processing it in your head? How were you thinking about it that made you think that this is the right thing to do? And asking those questions and then guiding to say, okay, when this happens next time. And let me show you, let me share with you. I was working with a young girl who started to touch herself, right? And the mom found out that she was touching herself. She was essentially masturbating and all of that. And it was the shouting, you cannot do this, and then the scriptures and stuff like that, and it's bad, blah blah blah. And it's okay to tell your child that something is bad. But the thing is, they already know it's bad. That's why they're ashamed of it. Because if they don't know that it's bad, they will come in the parlor where everybody is and be touching themselves. But they know, a human being knows what is good, and like, you have that intuition to know what is good and what is bad. And that's why they're hiding to do it, right? But if they could stop it, they would have stopped it. So if I know that something is bad and I have the capacity to stop it, I would stop it because I know it's bad. But if I cannot stop it, that's because I'm struggling to stop it. So we have to understand that when our children, when we see repeated behaviors in our children, to think about it like that. If your child had the capacity to stop and do the right thing every time, they will do it. Even you as an adult, you don't do the right thing every time, right? So if they had that capacity, they will do it. So think about it, that if they're doing this thing repeatedly, it's because they don't have the capacity to stop it. So how can I help them? How can I support them? We need to be strategic, practical, curious, problem solvers. Not emotions will not get anything done. And that's why the basis and the bulk of parenting is really more around working on yourself, to be able to organize how you think, to be able to organize how you channel your emotions. So this girl was then, the mom then referred her to me. And you know I just asked her questions, and she was very honest. She said she liked touching herself. It made her feel this way. So there was no judgment in that space. There was no judgment in the space that I created for her. And that's what you need to do with your son, for your son, to really ask questions that helps him see that there is no judgment, that you're just trying to understand why he keeps lying, why he keeps taking things. You're trying to understand how his brain is thinking about it. He should walk you through how he thinks about it, how he feels, that you're trying to understand how to support him. Because that's what I did with this girl. And I said, anytime you feel like that, anytime that thought comes again and you start feeling like touching yourself, are you able to tell? Who would you feel safe to tell, right? And we agreed, even though she didn't feel safe at the time, but we worked up to her being able to report it to her mom and manage her mom's. We also worked on managing her mom's emotion. And she created that accountability where when it started to happen, she would go to her mom and say, I'm feeling like, and then the mom will talk her through it. We found frameworks for the mom to use and help her, and things to do. And after a period of time, that was off, because she then felt safe in that space, right? If not, what we then do when we keep harassing our children is we then put them in a space where they're wondering if they are a problem. So I know this thing is bad, and I keep getting in trouble for doing this thing. I'm trying to stop, but I cannot. Is something wrong with me? And then when your child gets into that rabbit hole where they feel like there is something wrong with them and that they're dysfunctional, then it becomes a problem. And the devil can actually get a hold on that and accuse them and get them into even bigger problems. So we don't want that. With grades in school, um, that's a bit of a challenge. Not, I wouldn't say a challenge. I mean, with school, when it comes to school, you have to collaborate with the teachers. You have to find out how your child likes to learn, and then you have to think about in your home space what you can do, considering the time available to you, the resources available to you. So sit with it. Let's say a child struggled with English. The English grade this year wasn't good. Again, sit with it. I'm seeing this is the area you're struggling. This is the area you're struggling with. Why are you struggling with it? Sometimes you can even find out that it's not the child's fault. It might be the teacher. It might be they don't like the teacher. It might be the teacher picks on them. They don't pay attention in the teacher's class. So investigate that and then come up with, okay, how can we, do you need to get extra lesson support? Do you need to buy resources? Do you need to set X amount of time for them to look over, those areas that they're struggling with? This is as far as it doesn't have anything to do with additional needs in terms of, their education. So if it is proper, like a child struggling with their academics, I think having that approach would do it for you. As far as there's no additional needs, okay? Chinya, give me a thumbs up if we're good.
Sorry, we're good.
All right, thanks. So Uche says your kids, they want to do what other people are doing. So you've taught them some of these things and you have moved to a new country and now they're seeing what others are doing and then they want to do what others are doing. I say that when it comes to setting rules and regulation for children, you have to, because there would always be that challenge. There will always be that conversation around, oh, my friend is doing this, you don't let us do this, especially if you're living and raising your children in the West. It is a massive struggle because they have just come from an environment where they are really, really restricted, and it was agreed in the community that you cannot do certain things, to a different environment where those things that we thought we could never do, everybody is doing it, and it's not even a problem. People are happily doing it. So you have to have that conversation from a value. It's no longer gonna be, oh, do this or don't do that, right? Because it's a clash of cultures and they're just gonna look at you like, are you even okay? But you're gonna have it from, first of all, again, coming down to the basics of explaining why. Explaining why. Don't treat your kids as kids, treat them as humans, right? Explaining why. So my daughter is 11, and in her class, I think 80% of her classmates have phones, but she doesn't have a phone and she's not going to get one until she's 16. And that's a conversation we have had for a very long time. And we have had that conversation from different perspectives, from the perspective of focus and attention and distraction, from the perspective of brain development. I share articles with her. I share videos with her to let her come and see what the phone can do to your brain. So I'm not saying don't have a phone because I'm this African mom that doesn't want you to have a phone, or I don't want you to be cool, or I don't want you to do what your mates are doing. I'm saying don't have a phone because I understand what it can do to you, and I love you so much to allow that to happen to you. So she is in on it, but it doesn't mean that she also doesn't have moments where she's like, oh, but can't I? but we still have that conversation to say this is actually why. This is not just vibe. This is not just me saying you can't just because I can say you can't. There's a reason, a cogent, important reason why you cannot have the phone. And this is why I'm getting them to know why, you don't want them to do those things. So use that to explain the things, the sleep, the siesta, the schedule, the routine, you know, use that to explain the things. Why do you want that? Because again, this would help you reflect on why. And sometimes you find out, for some people who asked about if they're overreacting and all of that, when you're asking yourself, why is it I don't want my child to do this thing? It also helps you to reflect, to know if it is you projecting, or if there's actual valid reason why you don't want them to. So think about, so it's just taking it a step back to why the things I want my children to do or not to do. Why do I want them to do it? And why do I not want them to do it? And make sure that it's not about you. It's not about, the things that you did not do, or the privileges that you missed or did not miss, right? And then when you have your own family meeting in your house, sit them down again and to say, it's not like I don't want you to enjoy what you think XYZ is enjoying, but let's look at it. And sometimes, depending on their age, you can throw the question to them like, what can happen if you do this? So that they themselves can identify some of the consequences. Because children most times do not have the ability to see through to the end of what the consequences of their choices now can be. So it's our responsibility to paint that picture for them, right? So help them to paint that picture. What can happen if you do this? They'll tell you, okay, if you now do this, what can happen? They'll tell you. So paint a clear picture for them of what can happen, and show them the consequences if they don't do what you know you're asking them to do. And when it comes to them coming at you like, oh, but this person is doing it and this person is doing it, for me, what I would say in those instances is I will ask them, what is your name? What is your surname? What is that person's name? What is that person's surname? So in their house, they can do anything they want, and it doesn't make them bad people. But in the Okoye house, this is how we do things, and this is why we do it the way we do it, because of XYZ. So have that conversation from a value point of view, so that it saves you, the constant back and forth of this person is doing, this person is doing. So that pretty much knocks off everything. Everybody is allowed to do what they want to do, but because of this is who we are and this is what our values are, right? This is why we have to do this. So tie the things you want them to do into your values, right? If you have followed me long enough, you know that we work on knowing what our values are. So even this goes to you to Chinyere. So you want to, because your son is struggling with lying, you want to make honesty a core value in your home, right? My son has a personality where he's very playful and he exaggerates a lot. So, and lying starts from exaggeration. So he talks a lot, he likes to gist, he likes to make it fun, so he would exaggerate. And most times I say, one of our values is honesty, and part of being honest is that you don't exaggerate. You say things the way that they happen. You don't remove, just say them the way. And sometimes you say, oh, I'm just joking. I say, even as a joke, you say things the way that they are. So always tie those things that you want to achieve, or the things that you want them to do, into a value that you also discuss with them, that this is a value that we hold there as a family, and this is what underpins the things that we do as a family. Uche, did I miss anything? Hmm. Uche, did I? No. All right. Um Fatima, give yourself grace. Mm. So you said you've struggled with your health this year, and that has made you struggle with parenting. When you're struggling with your health, I mean, health is the first thing. If you're not healthy, you can't do much. So your health is your priority, and thank God you've been able to navigate that. And when it comes to that struggle around, oh, am I spoiling my child by not, being firm? And I use air quotes for firm in the sense that I think most times it's culturally driven, right? Sometimes it is driven by what people are saying, what people are doing, how people are interpreting your child's behavior. So sometimes it puts a pressure on you to make you then feel like you're not doing enough, right? So again, sit back and reflect on who you want to be as a parent, and who you want to raise as a child, right? Understand your own why. So for example, when I had my first child in 2014, and I decided that I was not gonna yell, I was not gonna spank when I started the journey. It was pretty much in a time where if you came out to say you're not spanking or you're not yelling at your child in Nigeria, you're gonna be bullied. Like, everybody's gonna say, do you want to spoil your child, right? But I sat with it, and I understood why I did not want to do that. And I ensured that my why was stronger than the voices that I was hearing outside, right? So sit with it and define the kind of child you want to raise, the kind of relationship that you want to have with your child. And there's none of us are perfect. So even though my principle is don't yell, don't spank, there are still times that I lose it, right? Maybe when I'm tired, when I'm overwhelmed, there's still times that I lose it. Like, I go crazy on my kids. But I would forgive myself, and then I will repair. And repair looks like calling them and saying, actually, I didn't mean to react like that. I'm sorry for reacting like that. And then we course correct. What are the things that led to that point? What is it that they did that triggered me? How can we avoid that from happening? Right. So your daughter is still 4. Yes, you want to also be careful and make sure that you're putting your feet down, you're teaching the things that you need to teach, you're insisting on the things that you need to insist, because again, at that age, children can be a bit pushy with boundaries, right? So if there are boundaries that you have, if there are things that you want them to do or not to do, you want to find ways to make sure that you're sticking to your boundaries and you're putting your feet down. So for example, if I had a 4-year-old and I have a screen time limit, and it was time to cut off screen time, and my child is crying and saying, oh, I want to watch, and throwing tantrum and throwing things, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be there. I'm going to acknowledge that, oh, you feel sad, because I'm cutting off the screen time. I understand that you're sad, but we are not going to have that screen time. If you like, shout from now till next tomorrow. We're not going to have that screen time. I love you, and I know that you feel bad, and I'm here for you. If you need a hug, if you need a cuddle, but we're not going to have that screen time. So gentle parenting, conscious parenting doesn't mean that your kids get everything that they want. It just means that even when you set boundaries, you do it in kindness. You don't do it in a way that makes your child feel less than. You don't do it in an aggressive way. But you need to put your feet down. Your no has to be your no, and your yes should be your yes, right? And this goes both ways, because sometimes also we make a lot of empty threats and we don't follow through. If you know that you're not going to follow through on a threat, don't don't bring it public. Don't say, oh, if you don't do this, you're going to do that, or if you don't do that, I'll take your tablet away, and then you never take the tablet away. Your children, after a time, they'll just call you bluff because you don't do the things that you say, and that's how they become brats, right? So if you say something that you're going to do something as a consequences for a behavior, then you have to follow through, even if it's uncomfortable. Because sometimes we give in because they're crying, and then you get overwhelmed by the cry. Sometimes the journey of parenting is a battle of who can wear the other person out, right? Who can wear the other person out. So if the children are always the ones wearing you out, then you've lost. So you have to, again, bringing me back to that point of parenting is really about working on yourself and your emotional capacity and your strength of mind, because sometimes there'll be a point where, yes, everybody is shouting and screaming, I love all of you, but we are not going to cross this boundary. And when you establish that the first time, the second time, they will just know, this mommy, once she says no, there's nothing you will do that will make her change. So let's just respect ourselves. It's the same thing plays out in my house. Like my husband is a soft one that they can manipulate easily, but my kids know that once it comes to me, if I say no, we're not doing that, we're not doing it, right? So you really have to have that mind strength to put your feet down when you have said something should not happen. But also, there's a balance. Also think about why you're doing it, right? It has to be things that are absolutely non-negotiable. Sometimes you choose your battle if it's something that is not in the bigger picture. It's not a big deal. Do you get the point? So for example, if it's, oh, I want to have a snacks, and maybe you have this rule of you don't have a snacks before a meal. Well, okay, a piece of snacks may not, like, you should know what's non-negotiable and what's flexible for you. But those non-negotiable, don't negotiate. Put your feet down and stick with it. Fatima, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
All right. I've answered Tochiko's question, Tina. So Tina, I'm sending you a lot of hugs because it's not easy to, navigate raising a child who has autism. With your younger child, I think I know that you might have done this in one way or the other, but working with a lot of families that have, you know, young people with additional needs, I also find out that a there is a trauma that the other children face where they feel neglected, and it's nothing to do with you. Like, it's not your fault. I mean, you have a young person who needs you to the point that sometimes the needs of the other children are not met. So sometimes, the attention that they want is not given to them because you have this other child that really needs double the attention or even triple the attention sometimes. So sometimes the kickoff you're seeing is a pushback because of that. It's a pushback because in your child's head, this other child has you more than they have you. And they want to have you as much as, their sibling does. So I'm thinking if there is a possibility of finding a balance where first and I know you might have had that conversation, you want to explain to them what is going on, and you want to get them involved in the care and support of their siblings. So it's more like we're all doing it together as a family, and we're supporting this sibling that needs us more together as a family. And that way, you know, your other child also gets to have some of you in that whole process, right? And I know sometimes it's easier to say, oh, just stay, let me do that myself. But is there a way that you can bring that balance where I don't know the severity of your son's autism, but is there a way that your younger son can be involved in that whole process, you know, to and it's a conversation you can, this is really a good time to have this conversation. It's a conversation you can have at this time to say, all right, I know that I'm not giving you as much attention as you need. I know that you need me, and I know it's almost like I'm always there for your brother, but I'm not as much, present for you. And I want that to change in the coming year. Also listen to him and see if he has any perspective to share with you. And then think about, all right, I want us to do this together. I want to support your brother together. These are the things that your brother needs, and this is how I want you to come in. Are you able to come in like that? Are we able to do it together? So we're sharing and we're bonding in that whole process, right? So, and I shared this with a bit of reservation because I really don't know what the day to day looks like for you and your child. But I'm wondering if that is something you'd be willing to explore and think about how that will work for you in the practicality of it. Okay. Um. Yeah. Tina, does that work? Does that answer your question?
Um, yes, to an extent.
I know, and I know, I understand what you mean. Um, when it comes to discipline, right? Discipline, discipline is a full day's teaching. It's a full day's teaching, but I'll break it down. You know, I want us to think about discipline as teaching, because the way you think about discipline in your head would also reflect in the way that you demonstrate it in the relationship that you have with your children. I want us to think about discipline as teaching, because we don't have any moral justification to punish. Because when we say discipline, most times we're talking punishment, not discipline. Excuse me. So think about discipline as teaching. If you have not had the conversation before with your child, then when they misbehave, that's your first time to have that conversation. And having that conversation shouldn't just be about shouting. If you have shouted and said, don't do that again, I don't want you to do this again, you have not disciplined. Yes, you're upset about what they have done, then provide skill or knowledge. So they have done that, you're upset, and you have addressed it. What should we do next time? Because obviously, if a child is doing that, that's because they don't know better. Hmm. This is how I like to think about it, because I don't think, unless there's something going on, I don't think that any child will go out of their way to do something just to get you upset, right? It's either they lack the skill, they lack the understanding, or they lack the impulse control to do something. So the goal of discipline is to teach the skill, teach the knowledge that they need to not do that thing again. Continue to teach impulse control, because sometimes impulse control will not happen. It will take time to happen, right? So think about discipline as, okay, this is something that my child is always doing. So let's have a conversation in a way that I will show them how not to do it again. What are the things that are making him do this thing? What are the triggers? What are the things that are driving him towards that? Are there things that I can remove? Are there things that I need to move about to help him not to do that, or not to be triggered to do that? Are there things I need to teach him to help him or her not to do that again? And if it persists, are there consequences, either natural consequences or, consequences that will put in place to help them not to learn their lesson? Pretty much. Natural consequences, for example, I don't know who asked about routine, right? So, natural consequences, for example, is that your child wakes up late in the morning and they go late to school. And for me, if my child, I'm trying to teach my child to organize themselves in the morning so that they can go early to school. If they fail to organize themselves and that leads to them going late to school, that's a natural consequences. And I'm going to take it further by speaking to the teacher to put in a consequences that they will feel in school. so that they understand that when you don't do some certain things, it leads to some certain results. So when that happens a couple of times, you will see that they will learn their lesson, because when I don't wake up in the morning, I go to school late. And when I go to school late, I miss a lesson or I miss out on something I love. Right. So let's overall, we're gonna do a lot of work on discipline in the coming year. I'm still working. 1 minute. Um we're gonna do a lot of work on discipline in the coming year, and we will delve deeper into it, but just have this as a framework of, what discipline should, look like. It's an opportunity for you to teach your child what to do or what not to do, to identify what they're struggling with. Is it a skill? Is it a knowledge? Is it impulse control? What is it that is making them repeat this behavior? And what consequence can we put in place so that they will learn this lesson? And the consequence should always be related to the behavior. So, for example, if I'm teaching my child to wash their plate after they eat, right, and they refuse to do it, consequences can look like, okay, if you have refused to learn to wash off your plate after yourself, then today you're going to wash everybody's plate, right? Or you're going to wash everybody's plate for 1 week. And by the time they do that, it will click in their head that, okay, when I finish eating, I'll wash off my plate. I don't just put it in the sink. So that's that on discipline. Um, if for my, yeah, parenting alone is challenging. Um, it's quite challenging. There's no other way to capture it. It's quite challenging. It's quite exhausting. And how do you navigate that? The only way to navigate that is to take your self care seriously. So think about it. What is my self care? So answer that question. How do I take care of myself every day, or how do I take care of myself every week? And self-care doesn't have to be something expensive or something exotic or extraordinary. Self-care can be that I get my kids in early, and I get some me time. I get to relax. I get to watch a movie. I get to drink a cup of tea before I go to bed. I get to reflect. I get to gist with my friends and have actual adult conversation on the phone. I don't joke with putting my kids to sleep on time, right? As I'm finishing this thing, everybody's just going to sleep, because if not, you will run mad. If your kids are up 10, 11, you're sleeping exhausted and you're waking up exhausted. That in itself is the root cause of some of your crankiness, right? But if you structure your day in a way that I can have a messed up day, I can have a full day, I can sling along throughout the day and, not be grounded, but I don't joke with that 1 hour, 2 hours before my own bedtime. It's really, really important, right? So think about it in the sense of, how do I take care of myself? Because that's how you keep yourself grounded and then show up to parent alone. The problem you're having with structure is, if your child is ADHD, an ADHD person will not, an ADHD person will struggle with structure and routine. So if you're doing structure for a child who has ADHD, you have to be really flexible and create a lot of down times that are not structured. It's a child who has ADHD I am ADHD, so I struggle with structure. But I mean, I've done a lot of work to find my own rhythm. So in your structure, put in a lot of downtime, put in a lot of movements, put in a lot of loose time. So you might have structure around early morning, meal time, screen time, but then leave a lot of room for independent play that is unstructured. So don't have structure that is stringed along throughout the day from morning to evening. Have structure for activities that you actually need structure for, and then leave a lot of room for downtime. And I kind of agree with your daughter. You don't put the burden of being a model for other children on your daughter. She is also a child. and she deserves to have a childhood. Don't do that first daughter thing. Many first daughters here can identify or can relate to how much they're struggling because of that burden that is consciously or unconsciously placed on us as young people, where you're expected to be perfect because of your younger ones, where you're expected to come in all prim and proper. Please go to your daughter and explain to her that you know that she's also a child, right? Have expectations of your child as you would have for every other child, but don't make them feel like, oh, you have to do it right because you're the first. That's too much burden for a child. Allow her to also be a child. Allow her to also enjoy her childhood, which comes with not knowing what to do sometimes, which comes with learning on the job, which comes with making mistakes and getting your guidance through those mistakes. And I know that because your partner is not there and because you're parenting alone, you want your daughter to be have her eyes on the ball, but you can communicate that without too much demand. You can communicate that to her as a person, as an individual child, not as you are the first daughter, so I expect you to be. It's that is too much demand, and you don't want to place that demand. And I'm just saying this to every parent here. We do that subconsciously. Your first child, there's too much demand, but you also want to understand that they are still children. They will still make mistakes, that they came out first. They did not come with an extra, I don't know, but like, communicate your expectations, but don't make them feel like because they are the first, they have to not make mistakes, they have to know it all. And most times, the first children are the ones that we do not even show up for, the ones that we use for trial and error. And then we still want them to be the ones that are perfect, right? So please, just think about how you communicate that. Acknowledge what she feels like. If she feels like that's too much demand, acknowledge it and explore, just have that conversation with her and explore like what it will look like, for you to not place that much demand on her. And this is not you giving out your power, and this is not you creating room for your child to be irresponsible. This is just you um listening to your child as a human being, understanding that she's still also a child. Then share your perspective with her, like, I expect you to be able to do this or to be able to do that as an individual, not as you are the first daughter and I expect you to be perfect, right? Hmm. Um, Bukola, um, your husband is not on this on the same page with you. Yeah, I mean, most times, most many it's a common thing in many household where maybe based on personality, maybe based on background, maybe based on um knowledge. So, for example, you're the one who is in the community, you're the one who's learning all of these things, and most likely your husband is not in this community, not hearing the same information that you're hearing, not privy to the same level of knowledge that you have when it comes to parenting. So they will not be on the same page with you. Your husband might have a different personality type. Like I said, my husband is very, very flexible and very, very playful and unstructured. So, that happens. But the way around it will not be to be at loggerhead at every point in time. The way about it is to take that conversation to your husband to share why structure is important. And with men, it's not just about the emotions, it's also about the facts and figures. You have articles. For some families or for some women, what they do is, if they're in conversation or trainings like this, they'll just put it on loudspeaker where the man partially would just be hearing what is being said and all of that. But really, just having that conversation with your husband to share again have a fair knowledge of why you want the kids to not have screen, every day, and sometimes be flexible to meet yourself in the middle. So if your husband is someone that, I know that for many people, one of the challenges also, maybe the husband is working out late, and by the time they come back, you've already put the kids to sleep, and they feel like, oh, they're not seeing their children. So if that's the case, you also want to be like a bit flexible. So is there one day in a week where you're now gonna put aside to say, okay, they can stay late and wait for their dad and then catch up and have, TV time or movie time, and just sit with your partner and problem solve if they are willing. There are also spouses who are not just ready to listen to, like, I beg, carry all this your gentle parenting thing and just move away from my phone. We have those people. If that's your situation, then it would be a slow win and a slow buy over, right? You want to be a consistent presence for your children as much as you can when the husband is not around, and you want to build a solid relationship. When I say consistent, because then what begins to happen from my experience of working with families is, at some point your children will listen to you, your children will cooperate with you. Even if it looks like they're having fun with their kids, forget, these children know what is right and what is wrong. And if you build that consistency of being a voice, a steady voice that puts your feet down, there'll be times when it will be that their father is telling them to do something and they're dragging their feet, but you come out and you give them instruction and they obey it. That thing takes a lot of men off guard, like, why are they listening to you and not listening to me? Right? It plays out differently for different people depending on the level of incompatibility you're dealing with your spouse. But in any case, what a child needs to succeed is a an adult that is constantly present and is structured in their life. So you can give them that leeway with their father once in a while, but just be the consistent figure in their life. And then as you also try to navigate that relationship and manage that situation with your dad, and hoping that he will come along at some point. Yeah. If you have a teenager who is not opening up, your answer to that is in your third question, because you said you also yell, right? So I'm thinking that why your teenager is not opening up is because maybe there is that history of you yelling, and they have categorized you as dramatic or overreactive in their head, so they can't be bothered to share anything with you. And it's not, you're not, I mean, many people have that challenge, and navigating the teenage years comes with its own challenges as well. But what I would say is, I learn a lot from people who have adult kids. And when I moved to the UK, I moved alone with my kids. So I was schooling, working, and with two children under 10. And I spotted a woman here who had raised adult children who are sensible. So I kind of like sat at her feet. And one of the things she told me was, you have to understand and be at peace that your children will not open up to you 100% of the time, right? There are things that they would never open to you about, because historically, it's not because they hate you. They have been with you. There's an element of see finish. There's an element of knowing how you will react and being afraid of how you will react, right? There's also an element of not disappointing you or not facing your judgment, right? So, and that's okay. What then do? You strategically place people in their life that would help you get access to them. And those people may not come back to you to say, this is what your children said, or this is what they're going through. But you know that I have trusted people in my children's life that if they're not talking to me, then they're talking to those people. And you have to do it strategically. It can be in the form of a mentor, official or unofficial, that you place in your child's life, right? It can be in the form of a I am that to a lot of children, right? There are few moms on this call now that I am that to their children. There are few moms that when the when the heat is on, they'll just say, go and speak to Dr. Vivian, right? So you have to find who it is. It can also be like a younger cousin, or and a young older cousin, or a young auntie, or a young friend. You should have friends who are older than you, friends who are your peers, and friends who are way younger than you, because your children will need them, right? So it can be that when your child start misbehaving, you just call one auntie or one uncle and say, see what your person is doing, just come to the house for dinner. And then the person comes to the house for dinner unofficially, and then that conversation, just how to bring that conversation, and then they will corner your child, have that conversation, and your child opens up to them. So you parenting is like how a train is, and then you have the head coach, right? The parent is the head coach, but a train has different coaches. That is who you are for your child. So you are the head coach that leads the other coaches in the direction that they are going, but you have to place those coaches, right? Can be your child's class teacher, can be your child's Sunday school teacher, it can be other people that you have strategically placed in their life to have access to them in a way that you're not able to have, you know, but you know that these people are trusted people. I trust their guidance, I trust their counsel, and I trust that when something happens, my son or my child will be able to speak to them, right? I have a lot of them, like even young adults that so recently a young person reached to me, a young person that I am like that with, reached to me to say he's about, let's, how old? No, I'm not gonna share his age because I don't want this, in case this link gets sold. The person doesn't know it's their child. Anyway, so he reached to me to say um that he was speaking to a girl, and somehow he ended up sleeping with a girl. How do you expect your child, your son, to come and share that with you? For many African parents, how you when you were, would you have shared that with your parents? Do you understand? So he came to me and said, and that he's feeling guilty that he slept with the girl, and some of the things that came out in his friendship group because of the fact that his friends also found out he slept with the girl. And it was a non-judgmental, we were logical about it. We talked about it, we talked about how it should not happen again, and what we need to put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again, and how he should navigate the conversation with the girl, how he should navigate the conversation with his friend as well, with his friend groups as well, and all of that. So no 17-year-old, 16-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old boy will come and share that with them. But you will give them backhand first, or you will judge them, or you will just react as a normal parent will react. So there's a reason why they might not share with you. So you then have to be proactive by putting people in their life ahead of time, that will be that space for them when they want to share. Okay, Bukolam, I hope I hope I've answered your question. Ah, no, Chichi, I'm not
Thank
yet.
you. Thank you, Doctor. That's really great. I have thought of that for quite a long time now,
Mm,
Being in UK, navigating so many things, it has really been very stressful,
mm,
you know. And here we don't have friends, we don't even have close people because of you understand what I mean,
mm,
So for quite some months now, I've been thinking in that direction, getting a mentor for him, somebody I can actually report him to, And
mm,
sincerely, I've not been able to get any. But since you've mentioned that again now, I think I will have to do more of my assignments in the getting that done. Thank you so much. That has really been helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Um, if your child, Cheta, I'm responding to you. You said your preteen goes into pre-rage. If your child goes into, if you have a child who has strong emotional response to things, there is a likelihood that they have a strong sense of justice. So if you want to address that, you have to make decisions through the lenses of fairness. So even though you want them to clean the house, so you have to have a preface, like things like, I know you're not the one that made the mess, and I know ideally it should be your sister, but please, can you? If if not, the interpretation that your child is getting from that is, it is not fair because I'm not the one that made the mess. Why should I be the one that will clean it? Right? So children who have that strong emotional response is because they have a strong sense of justice and there is leadership somewhere in their future. Um, how do you help to navigate that? Is through conversation, through reassurance, through giving them the opportunity to actually share how they feel without shutting them down. Again, curious to understand their perspective. Why does she feel so strongly about it? And listen, now that you know this is what is happening, it is because of fairness, then also think about, all right, are we being fair? How do we communicate this in a way that she finds that it is fair, like, it's not injustice on her own part, right? It's funny as an African, if you're thinking about it, it's funny, it's like, suck it up and just move on, but it's a thing. It's a thing. um my daughter has that as well. But it's a thing. But you just have to try to have that conversation where they see that you have considered them and that you have tried as much as possible to make a fair judgment. And you'll be good. As far as you're able to communicate that in that way, you'll be good.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
you're welcome. Um, Chichi, focus. Um, yeah, you were told that she has short attention span, and that is like, for, I don't want to label, but I mean, attention deficit is a thing. Um, I did address something similar before. She will just, she's an intelligent girl. She's obviously, I've worked with Shemi, so if she's struggling with attention, she's most probably struggling with ADHD. But this is not to label, and it's just when we talk about some of these things, I don't want you to label your child, and I don't want you to see it as a problem. I want you to see it as identifying the needs of the child and then thinking about how to meet that need, right? So someone who struggles with that would need um something visual, right? So you want them, what you want to, you want her to be able to read and all of that. You will need to make it visual, right? Get a visual timetable, plan out what you want them to do. And again, you don't want to have a string of plan. Somebody who is struggling with that will not do well with too much structure. So you want to give structure and also give them room for that need for their brain to be flexible. That's how their brain is wired. That's how their brain works. Too much structure cramps them. Too much structure cramps their creativity. So you want them to read, bring out the times that you want them to read. Don't overload their day. Bring out the times that you want them to read and then give them room to do the things that they want to do, right? Give room for that, their scatteredness. The scatteredness is not intentional, it is how their brain is wired. I am like that, right? So Give structure. Yes, you want her to read, you want her to focus, but also give room for the scatter scatter. It is essential for her. If not, what happens, and I've seen you doing that. I know I've worked with Shemi. I've seen you doing that, and now that you've mentioned this, I didn't have this overview at the time, but now that you've mentioned this, a few things then make sense, right? Overloading her would essentially lead to a burnout, and that's not something you want, right? So don't overload her. I'll reach you, and we'll create that structure. I will reach you and have a personal conversation with you. But yeah, if you have a child who doesn't focus, yes, you want to support them with, focusing. Make it visual. Have a timer that reminds them. So visual reminder, you yourself acting as a reminder, but don't give too much structure, so you can focus on one thing at a time. So it can be focusing on a time in the morning where we work on that focus. And when they have built that and have become consistent in that space of time over a period of time, then we can add something else. It will be it will not be wise that you have a child who is struggling with structure, and your solution to it is to then plan their day from morning till night with a lot of structure. You would keep on shooting yourself in the leg, and you keep on repeating the same cycle, right? Um okay. Precious, I think I've responded. I think that's pretty much the ones I have written down. Precious, I've responded to you, right? I think I responded to you. Let me look at the chat. We have some um
Yeah, you did.
all right. Someone said, I find that I have to explain what is important and what isn't important for even the simplest of things, like dressing up quickly because it's almost time for school, or picking up a desk from the floor, or reading or revising. So it comes, excuse me. So it comes down to what I'm telling you about ADHD, right? If you correct me if I'm wrong, your daughter daydreams a lot and she cannot help it. So she will find herself, she's dressing up, and she as she's dressing up, she has imagined herself in America. She has imagined herself speaking in front of Donald Trump. So you need to keep on calling her back, right? That's why the timer is important, and that's why the visuals are important. So what you want to have at the back of your mind is that she's not doing it purposely. It's just the way that her brain is wired. Then you need to help her build systems to overcome those distractions, right? So, and you won't do it with shouting and with put systems, visuals, and timers. So she's dressing up in the morning, set the timer. How long do you want for her to dress up? So if it's 15 minutes, set the timer for 10 minutes. So when the timer goes off at 10 minutes, it calls her back, and then she gets back. She has 5 minutes to finish up, and she's able to make it by 15 minutes. So things like that would help. Um people with People who struggle with attention deficit has a tendency to procrastinate a lot. I procrastinate. I leave everything to the dead to the deadline. If I don't have a deadline, I will not. I probably, and I know that looking from outside in, many people think I'm super efficient, super productive. I get things like, "Oh, how do you do the things that you do?" But it's a struggle I have as well. So I leave everything to the end of the deadline, and I can't help it, right? So sometimes I will need accountability. I need to put a deadline outside of the normal deadline for myself to be able to help me do that thing, right? So you can put deadlines. Don't leave things open for her, right? Put deadlines for her and support her with those deadline, and maybe put a bit of a consequence, because sometimes I put consequences for myself, like, excuse me, like if I want to really get something that I can put a consequence for myself, like if I don't do it, then I give someone I hate money. I don't hate people, but I give someone that I really don't like money, right? So put some consequences, from some like small consequences for her that will help her get to do it. But one thing I want you to leave here with is she's not doing it because she wants to. She's not doing it because she can do it, and she's just trying to it makes a whole lot of sense now. I've worked with her, I didn't pick that up. But yeah, she's not doing it because she just wants to do that. She's struggling. My 2-year-old seems to get angry easily. I don't understand it. When she's upset about something, she can throw things on the floor, scratch the personal car. She's just having a tantrum. Um, Probably age appropriate. Tantrum at 2 is age appropriate, but that doesn't excuse, like, you still need to kind of like keep guiding and keep setting boundary and keep communicating um what is what the boundaries are, what is allowed and what is not allowed. But the behavior and the expression and the outburst is normal at that age. But then you now have to start teaching not shouting, because when you're shouting, you're reinforcing the behavior. So when she's throwing things and you're shouting, you're reinforcing the behavior. You're saying that this is how we respond when we're upset. So she's picking that up and she's growing on that. So you have to bring in your energy. You have to be the calm in the chaos when that tantrum is happening, to say, all right, tell me how use your words, right? And I know that at that point they don't have a lot of vocabulary, but you can say, use your words, sad, angry, and give them the vocabulary to then express how they feel, right? My 3-year-old, I'll try to round this off at 7. Okay, it's almost 8 your time. It's 7 it's 6:42 my time. Hopefully we'll round off then. My 3-year-old is always wanting to know how things are made, thereby destroying them. How do I manage this kind of attitude? He also wants to do things his way. Please don't, don't, in the process of parenting your child, hamper their potential, right? What are the things that he's interested in? Go and buy scraps for him. Create a space for him in your garage, somewhere behind the couch in your house, where he will do what he wants to do. He's going somewhere and he needs to do those things, because something that is connected to that is in his future. So don't destroy it because you want him to be organized. Don't see people that you see, all these people, all these exceptional people that we see, like Zuckerberg and the rest. They expose their children to these things. They will buy a computer and tell their children to scatter it and refix it and all of that. You have a child who has that natural inclination. Please create a space for him or her to do that, right? So yes, you don't want them to destroy things, but the only way to not let them destroy things is to control the environment. So creating a space and making him know that, I have bought these things for you. These are the ones that you're allowed to scatter, right? And this is the space where you can scatter, and create that environment for them so that they then leave the things that you don't want them to destroy, if that makes sense. A 3-year-old wants to do things their way. They're still in that phase of tantrum and trying to find their own individuality. From 2 years, your child starts to understand that they are a separate person from you. From birth to about toddlerhood, your child feels like that they are the same entity as you. From 2 years, they start to understand that they are a different person, and then they start to explore the world. Then they start to understand what being an individual is. Then they start to test boundaries. So you, at that age, you get a lot of no, you get a lot of pushback, and then when you try to push back on your own, you get a lot of tantrums. It's age appropriate, but you can then gently guide them on what is allowed and what is not allowed. Yeah, I have to confess that I relapse when it comes to yelling. I yell very often now compared to how I was when I recently became a conscious parent. Please, can we be reminded of the importance of not yelling and how to look at triggers from a different perspective? Yeah, Uche will do a lot of that, but to be fair, Give yourself grace. You just moved to a new country. Do you know what you have done? You just uprooted, as in like you just uprooted yourself from everything that is familiar, from every support that you have, and you're trying to replant. So you're navigating through a lot, and it is normal for you to not feel very grounded, right? I'm sorry, 5 minutes, please. I'll be with you soon. By 7 latest, I'm with you. Um, um, it's okay not to feel very grounded. You're trying to find yourself, and it comes with all of that. I myself, who is teaching this, when I moved to the UK newly, I found myself very sensitive. I'm very irritable. I'm very triggered. There's also a lot of anxiety around. As an immigrant in a new country, you have a lot of anxiety, you have financial challenges and all of that. So please give yourself grace, keep regrounding yourself. And yes, we're going to do a lot of work next year. We're going to do structured work, and we're going to create space like this, and we'll have topical conversations to support the community. Um so I see that so you're sharing some questions. I think I've answered some of them. If there are questions that I haven't answered, I think I have answered the question of everyone who is here and shared. If there are other questions that I haven't answered, then I'll take my time um through the week before the year runs out, or in the early weeks of January, to answer them with voice note or text on the group. So if you were invited to this and you're not on the group, please just join the group. Then I'll respond to that um um to you. Does anybody have any reflection before I do my closing? My real bosses are waiting for me. People have kept me for too long.
Yes, yes. So
Fatima, you're
I
saying
yes, I really want to thank you for this session. I didn't even know there was going to be a session. I just stumbled upon it, and I would say you usually say something that parenting starts from the parenting ourselves. And in the course of this conversation, there's so many things that I've been really asking. I don't like too much structure. I have very short attention span. All those things, and it's just making me. I just feel like, oh, you're talking about me. You're talking about me. Even as you're addressing this for the children and referring it to yourself. So it's making me really see myself and say, okay, this is how I can also help myself and manage myself. Like I get burnt out easily. And I've been wondering why, maybe I'm not strong or something. So I really thank you for this session. Moving forward in thinking, I've gotten some strategies also to improve myself so that I can also be a better parent. Thank you very much.
thank you. Any other person? Any reflections? Anything before we close? Anything before we close? All right. In the absence of any other reflection, I think maybe I've done my job well. Um, yeah. So in the coming year, I mean, if you're in the group, I think GSO has shared some resources, access to the website. In the coming year, we're gonna have this space, to share. We're gonna have you know if you want me to support you on a closer level, like if you want me to support you and create that space where you and your family can really have that constant support, it's a paid service that is available. You can also reach out and have the information for that. If you're struggling with screen time and managing screen time, I know there are a few questions here that was around managing screen time. Please try and get my book. And I don't say this because I'm the one that wrote the book. It has everything that you need to actually get your screen time unlocked down. So if you don't have the book, please try and get it. Parenting in the Digital Age right? It's a really good book. It is so good that the organization I work with in the UK is using it to teach their staff so that they can be able to support the families that they work with. So if you don't have it, try to get it. Um, yeah, so look out for, I said that so yes, this is our parenting community, but we also work with children. We provide therapy for trauma, for people who are going through abusive relationship and all of that. But things are changing a bit in how we do things. Everything is going to come under one umbrella, which we're calling Minds and Wellbeing Network. And the principle around that is, for us, the goal is to nurture. Yes, we're nurturing young minds, but we're also healing older minds, right? So that encompasses all of the things that we do in different expression of it. So things will be changing a bit because every work that we're doing is now going to come under Minds and Wellbeing Network, and we'll share how that would work. And this community would come under our parents network. We would have a neurodiversity support network, and then we will have narcissistic abuse or abuse recovery network. So different arms of it, depending on what kind of support that you want to get from us. We try to make that happen. So if you're not on the group, be on the group. There'll be a few announcements coming up, and then we'll carry you along. If you're not subscribed to my emails, please subscribe. If you're someone who is looking to heal, if you feel like you want to walk a journey of healing from childhood trauma, or just really, trying to ground yourself around your mental health and all of that, I'm starting a newsletter in towards the end of January next year, where I'll be sharing a lot of practical tips around healing, around navigating the journey of finding yourself again and doing the inner work that you need to be a better person, so you can show up to the world and more grounded and more mentally strong. So if you're not subscribed to my email, please do subscribe to that. Yeah, so just look out. A lot of things are coming up. God helping us and God willing, we will do better in 2026. We didn't do so much in 2025 because of these different expressions, and trying to find a balance and footing in them. But yeah, we're consolidating, and then we'll bring that out to the general public in 2026. Fingers crossed, God helping. So thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for bringing your questions. Thank you for engaging. And yeah, please do reach out if you need me to serve you personally in 2026. Do I have capacity for that? So if you do, yeah, if you do need me to serve you personally in 2026, do reach out and ask how that works, and I'll share a bit of that with you. Yeah, thank you and have a good night, unless you have something to add. If not, then I will stop the recording and I will see you. Merry Christmas to everyone. Try to enjoy your holiday, and also, and
Hello. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
thank you.
Merry Christmas, Dr. Vivian.
Thank you very much.
Merry
Compliments
Christmas.
to you.